Fuck. Yo, I just already know that I'm going to bless this day, but I'm also going to curse this day. Upon which I thought it was a good idea to open up my mouth as though it was not big enough already and start a goddamn podcast. Okay, so we're gonna go right into it. I'm gonna try really hard to just stay on track, but there's a lot of layers to this. This is the topic that people seem to be most curious about of my life, which is my stripper journey. Yeah, so basically I was a stripper for 4 years where that was my primary source of income. Let's just take it back to day one, okay? January 28th, 2015, my 21st birthday. I know, shocking. We're thinking that should be this year, right? But that was a decade ago. So, basically, I had just put in my 2 weeks at the Buffalo Exchange I was working at. I was a manager, but even as a manager, like those paychecks were not that cute. So I was like, I need to figure this shit out. So I'd already put in my 2 weeks because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go audition and obviously get hired and I'm gonna be a stripper. Okay, so how did I really decide this though? So in a sense it really tracked. Like I grew up as a ballet dancer, and like other kinds of dance. And I like in college I was like crazy party animal. Like I wasn't out every night, but when I did go out, like you better believe if there was a table, like that was my stage. I'm dancing on it. If there's a doorway, my leg is up in the split. Like the beat drops and I'm doing my like classic arch back into a bridge, back walkovering into the splits and twerking. Like that was the typical routine. So it wasn't like that far fetched of a concept of like, ooh, like Gabby, a stripper. I feel like people probably definitely joked about it. But at the same time, I also grew up in a very conservative background. Okay, like we're talking like very conservative, religious, like Christian, but like extreme. Modesty was a huge deal. Like it was very much giving like no premarital sex. So yeah, it was it was giving. I was risking potential disownment by deciding to become a stripper. Um but yes, as a 21-year-old and wanting to rebel, being in that very much that era, it just kind of made perfect sense. So yeah, I was ready. I was ready to get hired. I walked in on my 21st birthday to Sapphires on the Upper East Side and of New York City. And this was my first time stepping into any type of strip club, mind you, right? Of course. So, and I had called in advance and I was like, I asked what to bring and, what to do for the audition. And they told me to, bring a gown. And I hope maybe they've like updated the lingo since. Again, this is like almost 10 years ago, but I don't know what it was with like strip clubs and calling like mini dresses gowns. Because when they said gown, like I took that literally. And conveniently, I do make my own clothing. I do sew. So I was like, oh, no problem. Like, I can whip something up real quick. So I make this dress. And mind you, I still have this dress to this day. To this day. I would show it to you, but it's like deep in a suitcase in the far corner underneath my bed. So yeah. But basically the last time I wore this dress was actually to a funeral. RIP. And mind you, like I was like I was turning a look as I had to, like in respect of my friend, who was always turning the best looks. But yeah, but just for like a little bit of context, like it was just like this black, like, yeah, just like long, like fitted dress. Like it was giving like a little bit of cute cleavage, but then it was also just like a high neck collar with like these hook and eyes in the back that were like a little hard to take off. So then, of course, the moment comes where, yeah, like we were supposed to go up onto this. It was a very small, it was like there was a pole with like a very small circular platform underneath, like a small go-go platform, if you will. But yeah, it was not and there was like, I think there was like a railing, like a metal railing around, so it was not giving like a lot of space to really do much. And I thought, because also, okay, so just to rewind a little bit. So basically, like a year before this audition, I was living in Philadelphia. That's where I had gone to college for a couple years, dropped out, was in like an indie rock band for a minute. That broke up, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, all right. I knew I was going to be turning 21 soon. I was like, I need to turn 21 with a bang. So I was like, I need to get my ass to New York City because that's where I always really wanted to be. Philly was just kind of like a stepping stone. I grew up in Michigan. And so, yeah, basically I had been working at a Buffalo Exchange in Philly, and one of my coworkers who started working after me, she pulls up and, oh, she's a pole dance instructor. I was like, wait, what? Like, I thought I was like the dancer of like the workplace. So I was a little shook, but I was like, oh, like I grew up, yeah, classically trained in ballet for 8 years. I was like, oh, no problem. Like, I was like, I've never pole danced before, but I'm sure I can. Easy. So yeah, I show up to this class. And let's just say a bitch was humbled. Okay, because like one of the first moves where you just have to like grab the pole and like lift both of your legs, and I couldn't do it. I could only lift like one leg at a time. That was like the entry level version. And meanwhile, I see this like woman in her 50s at the top of the pole upside down, just like cruising around like it's nothing. And I was like, wait, what? So obviously I became obsessed. And conveniently, as I was living in Philly at this time, again, mind you, this is like 2015, but there was this incredible studio, Flaunt Fitness, where they had $60 a month unlimited class memberships. Insane. Like, now you try to take like one pole dance class in New York City and it's gonna be $60 for that one class. So yeah, for that to be the monthly price for unlimited classes, insane. So obviously I like lived at that studio for like 6 months right before I moved to New York City. So that was perfect. So I had already learned at this point how to pole dance. And as much as I was definitely humbled in the first few classes, because it is tough and it's extremely painful and it is a pretty steep learning curve, but at a certain point my ballet background did kick in and I was able to accelerate pretty quickly. And so, yeah, so I was like, okay, perfect. Like, I know how to pole dance. I was like, I'm hot. I'm 21. Like, why would I not get hired? So, yeah, I had already put in the 2 weeks. Boom. So, anyway, long story short, I probably looked like a deer in the headlights. Like, I was really trying to play it so cool. But I think, like, yeah, at the end of the day, like, these bitches could see through me. And obviously, like, the hiring manager person, she could tell that I was, like, completely new to this. Again, it was my first time even stepping a foot into a strip club. And so I was pretty awkward. The performance was awkward because I tried to get right into the tricks, but then I couldn't really move in the dress. And then I tried to take off the dress, but it was kind of awkward because, like, the hook and eyes in the back were hard to take off. And it was, it was just, yeah, not my best work. So, yeah, so basically I did not get hired. I did not get hired. They also like took like my grinder like full of weed because they had like done a bag check. So that was just annoying. So anyway, and it's on my fucking birthday, so I'm just like, okay, great. Like, I just get rejected from a strip club. I have no job. I had just moved to New York City like 4 months prior, so I didn't have like any type of real savings or back end or like, it was but I was like, no problem. No problem. I'm going to try again tomorrow. New club. I feel more confident now. I have a little bit more of an idea of what to expect. No problem. I probably wore like a shorter dress this time. Who knows? Rejected again. So I'm like, fuck. Should I have like thought this through a little more? Right. So, and mind you, like the clubs where I auditioned, because the second club was Rick's Cabaret in Midtown, and I had kind of just made these decisions based off of just like, I think I literally just searched inside like Google Maps, just like entertainment clubs, adult entertainment, gentlemen's club, strip club. Strip club doesn't really bring stuff up, so you kind of had to like search, like gentlemen's club, entertainment. Anyway, but yeah, so I kind of just like went off of that quick browse. I just kind of like, I lived in Brooklyn at the time, but I felt like dancing in Manhattan was giving more of the fantasy, so I was like, okay, duh. And then yeah, I was just kind of like pulling up the listings, looking at the aesthetic, and that's kind of how I was making my decision. I was like, whichever ones just like have the cutest lighting and just like a cute tacky stripper vibe. So yeah, that's how I kind of made these decisions. So anyway, now I was kind of like, okay, shit, like, do I just keep auditioning at new clubs every day? Like, what is it? And mind you, at the time, because when I first moved to New York, I felt like I needed to stand out more. So, yeah, I wasn't used to being like one of many mixed girlies. Because I grew up again in like very conservative Michigan. Like, let's be honest, it was pretty much just white. So anyway, I felt like I needed to stand out more. So, and again, this is like 2015, so this is very much in the like undercut, buzz cut era. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be an undercut baddie. I buzzed off like, yeah, like most of my head. And then I had just like some short hair on top. So I had been pretty correctly advised to probably audition with a wig. But for those first two auditions, I had worn these like short little like black bobs. And so I was like, okay, like, do I need to just like play more into the bimbo fantasy? Like, do I need to just like have like the long hair? Like, what is it? But yeah, so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go to the beauty supply and I'm gonna pick out a wig. Okay. And mind you, like, I had kind of been thinking that morning, I was just like, damn, like, I wish I just had someone that was a stripper or that just like had experience in the field that I could talk to. But I really did not know anyone who had really ever, I mean, as far as again, not everybody's out about it, but as far as I knew, I did not know anyone who had ever been a stripper. So yeah, I was just kind of going in a little blind, but I was like, all right, let me get this wig. Boom. So I'm in the beauty supply and I'm trying on this one wig, and out of nowhere, this woman just like starts commenting, and she's like, no, I don't think that's the one. She's like, yeah, no, I think like let me show you. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, wait, mind you, she's looking a little dusty, okay? But at the same time, like, I was just like praying for advice, and she's like, what's this all about? And I tell her, because again, I was very much And I so clearly am, seeing as here I am speaking about this life experience on a podcast. But yeah, I'm a pretty open person. So I was just like, yeah, girl. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm auditioning at strip clubs, boom, boom, boom. And she's just like, oh, honey, like, trust me. I was a stripper for 23 years. Like, let me show you the ropes. So I'm like, well, shit. Like, is this the answer to my prayers? Like, has my stripper guru just like fallen from the sky? So yeah, so she's pointing out these other wigs she thinks I should get, and then she's like, listen, I'm gonna take you to the stores, like, let's get you some outfits, like, you know, she's really talking up her services. So I was like, okay, lit. Next thing you know, she brings me to this to the 10 spot. Okay, that's a Bushwick niche on Broadway. Um, and because I was living like on off of like Broadway and like what was it? No, it was the Chauncey stop. Yeah, I was living off the Chauncey stop on the J. At the time, and yeah, so she brings me to the 10 spot. Mind you, this is when I was in my like minimalism era. Okay, I thought I was so cool, so chic. I only wore black and white clothing, preferably natural materials. Like I was like always in, yeah, like leathers and linens and silks. It was I'm not gonna lie, like I had my little thing going on. But anyway, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not wearing color. I'm not wearing any just like anything that kind of had that like tacky stripper look. So yeah, she brings me into this store and she's like, oh yeah, this will be perfect. This will be perfect. And I'm just like, my heart is just like dropping. Like I was like, oh yeah, no. Like I cannot trust this woman. Like this is no. What have I, what have I gotten myself into? But she's really telling me, she's like, listen, like when you're in the environment and it's dark, the lighting, you need something to pop. You need some colors that are really gonna catch the little bit of light that there is and really pop. Yeah, and then she was telling me basically about this underground spot. um, yeah, almost like private lap dance party, if you will, but there's definitely a range within the like private lap dance party world of like, some of them, yeah, it's a very cute venue and very comfortable inside. This was not that. It was very underground indeed. I was dancing in like a dingy basement, barely any lighting at all. But it was my first time shaking ass for cash. Okay, so yeah, like I didn't make a fortune, but I was like, okay, we we got some bills, okay. So that kind of just like broke the ice, and that was encouraging, and just like, yeah, got the ball rolling. So right, the other side note was that homegirl, my stripper guru, Peaches, was her name. Um, she mentioned at one point that, oh, could she maybe shower at my place? And then, oh, could she maybe stay the night? Now again, for context, because I'll just be telling the story like, damn, this is actually insane. But no, for context, okay, I was 21. I was a mere 3 days into being 21. I was a mere like 4 months into living in New York City. I had been homeschooled growing up. I was very sheltered, very naive, and frankly, way too trusting. So yeah, so next thing you know, I had agreed to Peaches showering at my place and spending the night. Now I also had 2 roommates with whom I did not um I didn't run it past them, basically. And they were not so thrilled later, and I was so confused. I was like, why is this like such a big deal? But yeah, so basically, um yeah, Peaches had given me, she had told me about some other clubs that I should maybe try, and kind of given me some little like brief descriptions. And she happened to mention this one spot that was like a little bit more alternative, and like, oh, girls can like have tattoos and piercings, because that's the thing too, where a lot of strip clubs, particularly the Manhattan strip clubs, and again, maybe things have evolved since 2015, but at the time, yeah, for the most part, like tattoos, like, yeah, if you had a lot of tattoos, they wouldn't necessarily hire you. I also had my septum pierced at the time. So like I would, put up my ring. And again, with like the haircut and whatnot. So I was like, ooh, like the alternative spot. I was like, okay, maybe, I wouldn't always have to wear wigs and yada yada, because I don't really have tattoos. I have a couple now, but that was after the fact. So yeah, so I was like, okay, let me check out that spot. So then I walked into Pumps in Brooklyn for the first time. Okay, if you know, it's a pretty niche, but it's been around for like over 20 years at this point. So yeah, it's the alternative dive titty bar, like biker bar. Like there's like motorcycles up on the wall. It's very small, but again, it just kind of has that like divey feel. And it's all the alternative baddies. So I walk in and I see these two legends on stage. Yeah, I wish I could shout them out, because again, if you know, you know. But yeah, saw these two baddies on stage, and it was just very much just giving the fantasy that I was looking for. Like I was just like, yes, like this is giving just the general just like vibe of like New York City that I was just looking for when I moved there. Like when I first moved there and I'm going to like, you're just trying to figure it out. You're trying to figure out the scene. You're wandering into random clubs, and some of them are just like really corny, even though, they're like, supposed to be like some of the biggest and the best ones. And so this was just one of the first times where I was really just like, yes, like this is just giving New York City fantasy. Okay. So yeah, I was just like, okay, this is it. This is the one. And luckily the hiring manager, he loved me. And yeah, they basically just like took photos. There was actually not a dancing audition, which I wanted there to be, because even though I had that not so great performance at Sapphire, I still, at the end of the day, like dancing is, my strength. So I did kind of want to lead with that. But anyway, they just took photos and they're like, we'll get back to you. In a couple of days, we'll text you. So yeah, basically I ended up getting hired there, and that ended up being my main home club for the next 4 years. Bruh. But yeah, so basically, just to like also just give a little bit of context about just like where my head was at for people who maybe are considering if this could be a career path for them. So yeah, again, obviously, like as I mentioned, it's like, okay, I technically had like some of the physical skill sets, whatnot, but as far as just like mentally and emotionally, because that's so, and like spiritually, frankly, because that's so much of what the job really entails. A few things to know, right? Because obviously a big deterrence for a lot of people, as far as like why they don't want to be dancers, is because of the stigma that surrounds it, right? Yeah, it's generally just like not a respected career. It's known to stop people from being able to have other careers down the line, this, that, and the third. So like that's obviously like a main drawback for a lot of people. Now for myself personally, since I had grown up in this very sheltered environment, again, like homeschooled, Christian, like I went to literally a ballet school. It was a Christian ballet school. So my main like social outings was like, yeah, going to my Christian ballet school with a bunch of other Christian ballet girls, and then going to church and youth group. Like that was like twice a week. So yeah. um very, very very sheltered. So anyway, so I was kind of trying to run from that identity. Like I didn't want to be the homeschool shelter virgin girl. Like I was like, no, fuck that. Like I want to be the cool bad girl who lives in New York City. Like so I was like, what better way to jumpstart that path for myself than to become a fucking stripper? Like what? Like you can't top that. Like what do you mean? Like it's pretty much boom. I kind of just gave myself a whole new fucking persona. But like there was a time where I literally used to wear a purity ring. I asked for this. A purity ring. It said, "I'll wait." No shit. No, let me not laugh, cuz like respect, and some people do, and it's awesome, and fuck yeah. But I did have to remove that ring at some point. So anyway, yeah, but that is to say that like I was not particularly worried about like the stigmas attached with dancing. Like I was kind of like, let's fucking go. The other thing too, right, is like in general, like it's pretty well known that like stripping isn't necessarily a career with like the most longevity, right? Always the exceptions to the rule, but generally like yeah, it's not really a career that like most people go into thinking like I'm going to be doing this for a long time. Yeah, and it's an intense lifestyle, so it can just be very hard to sustain. My whole kind of plan, right? Cuz a lot of times it's like, right, you strip to pay for your college or strip to da 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 da. And my kind of idea was I knew I've always been just like really passionate about dance and music and fashion and performance, modeling, acting, all these things. So I wanted to be going to auditions. I wanted to be, building a reel. I wanted to be doing all these things, being able to go to parties and network and go to those parties in fucking sickening outfits and have a cute apartment where people want to have a pregame or do afters at my apartment. We have something to show for. So, obviously I was trying to have a cute lifestyle. So, I needed something to where I could like make decent money, still have flexible hours to go to these auditions, take the dance classes, etc. And stripping was kind of just that perfect thing. And then again, already having the dance background, the pole dancing skills, it just felt pretty aligned. And yes. And for that, it really was perfect. And so I think, because ultimately it really is kind of like the dancing cheat code because unfortunately so many dance careers just don't pay very well at all. Like even the best of the best, like, you could be a principal dancer with New York City Ballet, ABT. And it's still, I mean, last time I checked, again, some years ago, maybe things have changed. I doubt it. It is not. Those paychecks are not looking cute. They are not looking that cute. For how much you have to give to it, for how much the hours and just like the wear and tear on the body, and again, like just short careers and yada yada. So I didn't really know, and now I'm a gig performer, and I love that, but I didn't know about that at the time. I didn't even know that that was an option. So I really kind of thought that it's like you're either dancing with a professional ballet company or like some dance company, or you're like a tour dancer for like a celebrity, or stripper. Like I did, I really didn't know about all the different in betweens and whatnot. But so that was kind of the best cheat code for me at the time, where I was like, okay, I have the flexible schedule, I'm making enough money, mind you. Not to get all the way into it, but first of all, the club that I was at, and I did end up at other points in time working for a few weeks at some of the Manhattan clubs, and then one of the clubs in Long Island City, Queens, where Hustlers was shot. If you know, you know. So, I did have those other experiences at other bigger clubs that had, for instance, private rooms. Okay. Now, Pumps, where I was mainly working, did not have private rooms. And private rooms is really where most of the real money is made. Unless, again, it's like, other clubs, like particularly, let's be honest, in like Miami or, Georgia, like Atlanta, like, some of those clubs where there's actually like real celebrities like passing through on a more regular basis, where they're actually like really making it rain or something like that. But like in New York, it's really not giving that for the most part. So you don't really make a lot of stage money, okay? AKA you don't really make a lot of money just from like your dance performance. You make the money from selling the private rooms, from doing lap dances, from just generally hustling for tips, and potentially like selling bottles depending on the club and how everything runs. But and as you can imagine, the private rooms, by nature of them being private, is where you never really know what the fuck is happening, and it could range from something surprisingly tame to the most insanely insane, crazy, freaky, fucking perverted shit. Yeah, let me tell you, it takes a warrior. I got pretty stressed out by the private rooms, I'm gonna be honest with you. That was a little bit more than I was really felt like I had the tools to be able to manage in a way that was gonna align with my boundaries. So the spot where I was at, Pumps, was known to be a bit more tame, in that, again, it was kind of more so of like a titty bar where we essentially got topless on stage, and then we would give lap dances in our outfits, our skimpy little outfits, in a common lap dance area room. So it was just never fully private. There would be like multiple different sets of people giving lap dances at the same time, basically on top of each other sometimes. Definitely a little bit of orgy vibes. Okay. That was that scenario. I did have a brief stunt again in one of the Queens club that was all nude and no alcohol. I did a few shifts there, and that was that experience. Maybe I'll get back into that, maybe not. But anyway, so that is to say, it was not as, it wasn't this like crazy money situation. As a 21-year-old, I felt like I was rich. I'm not gonna lie. There was definitely a minute where I was like, God damn, just because even at that time, even to make $300 to $500 in cash in one night, like, that was kind of mainly what my goal was. And that was pretty achievable for the most part. Definitely not always. Like the 500 nights were usually what I aim for on the weekends, whereas the weekdays I would just aim for, yeah, like 300. Um, but yeah, I mean, there were definitely really slow nights where it was like struggling to, get to 150. And then, yeah, there would be the amazing nights, 700 and more. To be honest, I guess we're putting it all out there. My best night was literally, it was like 1200 some. Yeah, I think it was like 1,000 like 260 or something. So yeah, I mean, at the time, I thought that was incredible. I mean, again, in strip club world, that's really nothing that amazing. There's there are certain clubs and certain dancers that would be more of an average night, and I've luckily discovered that I've been able to make that type of money in other ways doing my other gigs and whatnot. But yeah, so I definitely was never like a top earning stripper. But again, as just being someone who I was young, I didn't have like any significant debt. So for me, yeah, just to make, cash like that on the regular, like that was definitely lit. Like, yeah, but then again, like the best part was that I just had this really open schedule to be able to start, yeah, getting these other things going. Because yeah, I mean, God, I can't even, like, to try to get going, yeah, in modeling or acting or being a professional dancer. These careers, without like like there's so many scenarios where you will be chasing down checks for months, especially as you're getting started, and just like, it's, yeah, it's it definitely takes time to get like a steady income going in those careers. So it was really, really helpful that I just had something to wear every week. I was still making some cash. After like the first year and a half, I was really kind of only at the club like about once a week a lot of times. So again, even more so to where I wasn't making this like crazy stripper money, because I also like stopped working super frequently. But again, even just to have that one night a week, have that cash come in, that way, regardless of what was happening with the other gigs, we had something to work with. But yeah, honestly, it was just like the best training that I could have asked for. Just like as a performer, the strip club is the best boot camp. Like, you really just because you just have to build that just like unshakable confidence. That's what it really boils down to, because yeah, whether or not you're actually like a technically amazing dancer or whatnot, the way that you sell the performance as a stripper is just by, yeah, remaining confident regardless of if someone just said the most horrific insulting things to you, as you're just like vulnerably there topless, to still just hop on that stage and just be like, I don't give a fuck, I don't care what the fuck you just said, I still know I'm the shit, I'm gonna do my thing. Like, that is not easy. Okay. So yeah, having to do that night after night alone, like, yeah, it's just it's some really incredible training. And then on top of that, the fact that I was really, like, I was on that pole. That, again, you don't have to be on the pole like that. You can just walk up and just kind of walk around it, use it as just like a random, support, just because like you're in heels or whatnot. You don't have to be doing tricks. You don't have to be going upside down. But I was doing the whole Olympics on that pole, okay? It was giving Cirque du Soleil. It was like, I was definitely really going for it. Maybe a little too much at times. But no, it was really incredible. And honestly, those, like, I do have so many just magical memories of just like, yeah, just like true, not to toot my own horn, but just like true performance gold. Okay. Like just truly, just like moments of just being so locked into the music, locked into the energy of the room. Like, oh my God, because you're making eyes with this person, you're like just like connecting with all these different people in the room at once while making them all each feel like they're the only person in the room, and yet you're still just like totally in your own world, just in the movement and just everything. Oh my God. Yeah, no, it was it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. I know, yeah, it was really fun. I know that I really bewitched a lot of people. And it was just kind of some of those first moments of really like, even though again, I grew up in ballet, grew up dancing, grew up performing and the recitals and the yada yada. And so it wasn't like I had never performed before, but this was just it's on a whole different level. Okay, it's a very raw, intimate performance and exchange, and yeah, it's when I really just like first like had those moments of just really feeling like, oh damn, like I'm a star. Okay. And just yeah, seeing the looks in people's eyes of just like watching them just like fall the fuck in love with you in 45 seconds. But yeah, but again, it's the high highs and it's the low lows. Like you will get worshipped. You will get worshipped and you will get annihilated, humiliated, just torn down. Fucking yeah. um but yeah, so ultimately like again, like it just like the career did track for like my bigger goals. Again, I kind of just like looked at it at times as just like free training, free pole dance training, because again, I discovered like basically yeah, the minute I got to New York City and yeah, I had my retail job, I wanted to take a pole dance class because right, I had been taking them in Philly. And when I saw the prices of one class, and I was like, wait, how am I over here working retail trying to pay for pole dancing? I should be, let me just shuffle things up a little bit. Let's just press the shuffle button real quick, make pole dancing the job, and then everything else, boom. um, so yeah. Also, side note, Peaches, my stripper guru, she did try to get me fired after I ended up kicking her out because I never really finished the part about how basically after I did get hired at Pumps and then she wanted, and mind you, it was not just one night that she crashed at my apartment. She was now staying multiple nights, smoking cigarettes in my room, and now she wanted what was it, like 15% of my earnings. So it was giving pimp vibes. I was like, I don't know, girl. You're already in my house. So I did end up kicking her out. She did end up calling the club and trying to get me fired, saying that I was a man. So that's a whole nother discussion. I was pulled aside by the manager at one point. I had to go into the office and he pretty much, yeah, he was just like, so, someone named Peaches called, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So yeah, he's all like, oh, I was trying to like look for an Adam's apple, but I had the bartender, he had the bartender scouting out the crotch area. Anyway, so yeah, that had happened. Will the strip club make you hate men? That's the other question that people always would tend to ask. Like a lot of people be like, yeah, like I'm thinking about it, but I I just don't want to like hate men. I'm like, wait. Okay, well, right. My opinions on this have kind of evolved because at the time I didn't really have a lot of context. I had not, again, grew up conservative, homeschooled, Christian ballet school. Like, I was not around a lot of dudes, like, whether my age or older or anything. Like, I would, like, I had my brother, I had my father, that I live with. Like, I was not around dudes. So, I didn't really have a ton of perspective and experience in general. So the men that I interacted with, the men and boys that I interacted with at the strip club, like that was really just like the data that I was pulling from, like in general. So yeah. I just didn't have anything to compare to really. So I was just like, I mean, I don't think it's gonna really change your opinion in general. And I still kind of think that's kind of the case. I think in general it's kind of like you find what you're looking for in a sense. But at the same time, let's be honest. I would say that unfortunately, as much as mental health issues are definitely widespread in general, in America in general, I think the strip club can also attract a pretty saturated pool of, again, just, yeah, mental health issues. So it's a place of escapism. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a place. It's all about fantasy. It's all about selling an idea. It's a very temporary fix kind of thing. So I think just by nature of that, it's a toxic environment. Let's be honest. Some clubs more than others, for sure. And again, like there's toxic situations fucking everywhere. You know what I'm saying? You can be a doctor and be in the most toxic situation. Lawyers, all these things, like it doesn't matter if it's a clean cut job, whatever. Like there's toxic environments everywhere, of course. But yes, in general, the strip club is a toxic place. And it attracts toxic people. So I didn't feel that personally, that the strip club made me hate men, but I think that I already had limited experience, and then I dealt with a bunch of craziness. And I mean the fact is customers, they will just trauma dump on you, but then they'll also they want to hear, a lot of them, they just want to hear your dirty, deep, dark secrets. They want to hear about your own trauma. They want you, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you become a therapist without the actual built-in rate of a therapist, and you are, yeah. It's a lot. 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 Yeah. The thing, like, the tools you really need, the skills you really need to be a good stripper, to be to survive as a stripper, to make good money as a stripper. The tools, it's all an internal thing. It's all about, being able to remain confident, being able to essentially manipulate people. It's like it is about the appearance. It is about the appearance, and it is about the body, and it is about like knowing how to, like, you do need to know how to dress for your body type. Like that's the thing too. It's like you can have, like, a lot of different body types can work, but you need to know how to really sell it. You need to know how to dress for your body type. You need to know how to do makeup for your face. You need to figure out what type of hair situation is gonna work for you. But anyway, so it's all about just how you sell things, and again, just being able to remain confident against it all, because you will be up against it all. You will hear the craziest shit. You will have people just try try the craziest shit, ask you to do the craziest shit. You have to really have boundaries. And that was something that I had to really learn on the job, let's be honest, because I really had not really practiced that. And so, yeah, I had to really figure that out. But I'm glad, that's part of the reason that I am glad that, again, that I did, spend that time. And I think that the experience was right for me, is because I did kind of need to balance things out for myself. I did kind of need this crash course of being thrown into these crazy situations and having to build these boundaries to survive type shit. Ooh, another hot topic. Did I ever date a customer? Yes. For sure. Not all girls do. It's definitely, I think it's like a stereotype, or I don't even know if it's a stereotype. I think it's a lot of people's fear, both for the people dating strippers, their fear, and then people dating people that go to strip clubs, their fear is always that, right, that the dancers are gonna have situations with these people outside of the club and da 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 da. It's really not like that super common. To be honest with you, if anything, like, strippers generally are kind of like the last person you need to worry about. Like, for instance, your man being around, like, that they're not gonna be the first person to steal your man, like, because we're over it. We don't, like, what do you mean? We just dealt with 20 people tonight. We don't even remember, like, who, huh, what? No, that's generally not the case. But at the same time, again, if we're really talking numbers, it's like, if you think about all the hundreds and, over time thousands of customers that a dancer might interact with, at some point in time, if they're single, there is a chance that, someone might get fucking lucky. So yeah, a few people did get lucky. I had two, like, little, and again, like, I was 21 at the time, so they felt like, whole relationships to me. And, I think both of these things probably lasted about 3 months as far as us, like, actually, like, actively dating. But yes, I did date a couple of customers, in my first year as a dancer. Mind you, actually, yeah, I think one of them, oh my God, I think I met him, like, the first week. In my head, because so much was happening and just kind of, like, changing within me in that first week, like, it felt like, oh my God. But, like, yeah, it was definitely very early on that I met this guy. So anyway, yes, I did date some customers, and it was cute, like, for the time being. Like, I think it was cute. I think it's, it's a fun, it's a cliche, but it's also like a really fun fantasy, on both ends. Like, someone gets to walk up into the club, see this person, be bewitched by this person, have this whole fantasy. And then as a dancer, like, again, it's just really fun to just like, oh, you're cute, I'm gonna seduce you. Boom, boom, boom. But so I think, those situations ended up being fine for me. I was lucky enough that, they were, toxic in their own ways or whatever, as things be. But I don't think I had any, those situations were not, like, shockingly wild in any way of, like, oh my God. Like, and I was lucky. That's, not to say that, like, oh yeah, go just, like, date whatever customers is no problem. I'm definitely not saying that. But, but I am saying that I did happen to date some customers, and luckily, it worked out fine. But those situations happened in the first year of me dancing, and then for the next 2 years, I was in a monogamous relationship. Well, it was monogamous for the majority. We opened it up at the end. But anyway, Um, so yeah, so I was in that relationship. So um, yeah, that was kind of a pretty main deterrence from me interacting with customers outside of the club. But yeah, so that's the other thing that, people always so curious is like, oh, is it possible to date while being a stripper? Is it possible to date strippers? Ooh, of course. Um, yeah, I don't think it's, and again, maybe it's just like my own biased perspective, but I don't think it's as crazy as like a lot of people think. Um, if you're super conservative, like how my family was, to where it's like, even wearing a bikini is like the craziest thing in the world. Um, it's gonna be a little tough. But like if I think for people that are generally like pretty like liberal and open minded, and aren't just like super bothered by the idea of their partner being viewed scantily clad, or just the idea that like, yeah, other people are looking at their partner and like desiring them, like, because again, that's just like certain people that kind of turns them on. Ooh, yeah, like, all these other people desiring my partner, but at the end of the day they're coming home to me. Like, some people that's a really hot thing, whereas other people are, a further extreme of possessive, to where they just don't even want their partner to be viewed in a sexual way in any regard. So yeah, there's, that spectrum. But yeah, I happened to be with a partner who was pretty open-minded, who did find it, kind of hot that, yeah, these other people are wanting me. I was, at the end of the day, coming home to him. If there's, some kind of dynamic like that potentially, and then it's just, yeah, it's just about generally building trust, like just like in any type of relationship, because, in any type of relationship, in any type of job, you know, if your partner goes and leaves to a job and you're not there, like, you never know what the fuck is happening. So, there can be workplace romance anywhere. And in my experience, I've met a lot of strippers who are loyal ass bitches. Okay. So for me, yeah, I think being in a relationship while dancing was great. And I think if anything too, it's like, you kind of really need it. Like, because it can be kind of lonely. It can be super lonely. It can be super weird to like have all these like faux intimate interactions. Sure, and you're in and out of like kind of like, yeah, you're like connecting so much with these people. You're having these like da da da, and then it's over, and you don't even remember their names. You don't, nobody like, yeah, like, and it's all blur, and you're just like, eh. It can be really nice to have that support of just being like, okay, I have these little shallow interactions, but then I actually have someone where I can come home to, and I have an actual real intimacy. And, if there are those situations where unfortunately, you did just like deal with something fucking crazy, you have someone to talk to and be like, oh my God, I can't believe this fucking crazy customer and this fucking crazy thing that happened. And it's just again, because it's a job that's very intense on the mind, body, and soul. It helps to have some type of, therapeutic relationships on deck on the regular, to just be able to work through that. So whether it's, a romantic partnership, or it's just, again, having a strong community and just like really close friends, or an actual therapist, just having, trusted people nearby to really support you through these scenarios, because it's intense. It is intense. I'm running out of beverages. But yeah, I think the one for me, like, I think for me, the toughest part about being in a relationship while being a dancer was really more so about just, it is really easy to feel just like there's too much, you've just been touched too much. As much as, again, we try to keep hands in certain places and da da da, at the end of the day, like, you're gonna be touched. You're dealing with all this energy. You're being touched by these men. You're having to touch these men, and it can just be a lot. And so sometimes, a lot of times, yeah, I can just feel like when you do come home, you're just like, it almost feels like work to like be affectionate again, unfortunately. And so that can sometimes be a tough thing that I think partners will have to work through. It's just like, you know, yeah. And again, a lot of that is just coming back down to that trust and the safety, to where, having physical interactions and showing affection with the partner, feels so different and so much safer than the interactions in the club, to where that can, be distinct enough to not feel like repulsive. But that can be tough, because at the end of the day, like, the body's the body, and muscle memory and triggers and da da da. So that, I think that can often be one of the harder parts. But at the end of the day too, it's like, well, damn, like, let's be honest. Dating a stripper is lit. They have amazing body awareness. They know how to harness their sensuality and their sexuality, and and often they're amazing conversationalists, because that really is so much of the job, is really just the talking. And that was the other reason why I think, for me personally, I needed to go through that journey. And again, just because of my limited experience, being so sheltered and not having a ton of interactions of like being social. And so I needed something to just, again, like a crash course, talk to just all these different types of people that I wouldn't usually interact with in my general circles, and find a way to try to, make conversation with them. Like, it's tough. It's tough to try to make conversation, but not just in a way of like, oh, now we're buddies or friends, or, oh no, oh, you want to date me. It's like, no, we're making conversation, but also I'm always guiding this conversation to where it's just like, I'm opening up your wallet more and more and more. Give me more money, more money. Yeah, it is a fine art, okay? It is a fine fucking art, being a stripper and actually making good money and retaining mental sanity. Did I ever feel in danger? Okay, so I think I was pretty lucky on the spectrum. Again, like, I didn't have any really crazy experiences where I felt extremely unsafe, but I don't want to try to paint the picture that, like, oh, it's like totally chill and like nothing ever happens. Like, girls definitely had stalkers. Like, girls definitely got into situations that did get pretty ugly. Like, it happens. It definitely happens. I wasn't the safest as far as like giving out numbers and things like that. Like, I was pretty good about not, again, in the early days. Yeah, I was maybe a little too, because here's the thing. And generally, you just get a burner number or whatnot. That's generally the way to go about things. But to really do the job well, you do, and to just maximize the earnings, you do need to kind of establish regulars. And in order to do that, you're going to have to contact them. You're going to have to let them know the nights you're coming in. You're going to have to give them a little bait here and there to keep that relationship going. So, yeah. And then, like, I would give out my Instagram a lot. That's also something that, like, yeah, sometimes girls would just not do that. Some girls would have separate accounts. I tried a separate account. I also, because I was out about being a stripper, and that's another big thing too, right? Because a lot of, dancers, are not public about it. And so that's a whole nother thing. I was, and circling back to my family, right? Because I knew that I was risking disownment. So yeah, so basically I had posted something on my Instagram, like probably like a month or so into me dancing. That was kind of like my like hard launch of like, I'm a stripper. And again, I had already, because I was already pole dancing, like I'd already posted like kind of like some like pole dance content. So this wasn't like totally like left field. And I thought at the time that, like, cause my parents didn't have accounts, and like I thought that Instagram was kind of this like other world that Silly girl. Yeah. But basically, I see one day, boom, my mother has created an account. She has followed me. We already know. Like, it's not rocket science. I posted about it. So yes, my family did find out. I was actually very shocked and pleasantly surprised by how non-dramatic the reaction was. The thing is, yeah, there was never so much of like a direct conversation about it. My dad actually ended up texting me at one point saying, "I will always love you." Shout out to my dad. I guess I technically don't know for a fact that it was like about that, but like we don't really text super often. It kind of felt out of the blue, but I also kind of felt like it was like, okay, he knows. Luckily, I was not disowned. But definitely my family was not thrilled, and I know they prayed for me for the entire time that was happening. I'm sure I know they still pray for me now. But yeah, so I was pretty fortunate that didn't create like a crazy riff. Again, it was kind of always just like an elephant in the room that we never really talked about super directly. Um but I personally felt a lot better about just like having it all out in the open. That's just kind of the way I live my life. Maybe sometimes a little too much, but it is what it is. So yeah, but I think also that, in many ways that can create a safer environment, because just having something out in the open, having just that accountability of just other people being aware, it can just, yeah, it can help the whole dynamic of just being able to create a safer environment around everything. But then in other scenarios, it's like people knowing could actually get really dangerous. So it's, you gotta know yourself and know your situation and hope for the best. But yeah, so I was public about it. And yeah, so I would give out my Instagram because I also just like wanted more followers, and I was like, perfect. Like, you're already obsessed with me. You want my number? Just take my Instagram and follow me for the next fucking decade. Um, but yeah. So yeah, I was pretty lucky in that sense. But it is definitely something that people have to be conscious about. I Looking back and like thinking about the fact that I was like, that this happened when I was like 21 through 24, I am kind of just like, damn, how did I make it out alive? But I did. And yeah, I think ultimately, because I feel like I need to wrap this up, I wanted to talk about ultimately like the journey of me realizing that it was time to wrap things up. But maybe I'll make a next episode about that. But yeah, I think basically if you're trying to decide if it's a right path for you, I guess based off of all these different things, it's just like, do those challenges excite you, or is that like fuck? Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, it is a traumatic experience, but there's potential to learn so much. Again, if you do want to become a performer, it can be absolutely incredible and valuable training. And yeah, it is a great way to just make some cash on the side. But I do think that, really make sure that the whole time you're dancing, you either have another like career path that you're like building, or you just knock it out, go crazy, work like every day, and just stack some real money, and then try to get out and just pour that other money into building, whatever it is that you want to build. but it is a very easy career to kind of just get sucked into and just, spend all the money you make, and then it's just this relentless cycle, and it can be hard to get out. It can be really hard to get out because there are a lot of aspects of it that you can't really find some of those same dynamics in other careers. And so a lot of times people feel like, to stop dancing means they're going to take a pay cut. But I think that at the end of the day, the way to make the most money is to just like your job as much as possible so that you can just work 24/7. Maybe that's not really the best advice, but I just think that, at least for myself personally, like, I never felt super, like, as much as there was a lot of aspects about the club that I did enjoy. I had plenty of nights where I was having a great time. I would meet amazing people. I made a ton of friends on the job. I was lucky that club that I was at, Pumps, was also known for the girls actually getting along. And that was also kind of pretty rare. Like, there's a lot of clubs where that's not the case. Girls be, stealing, money and all kinds of things. And, yeah, but that was not the case for me. There was amazing camaraderie. I made a lot of friends. I had a lot of great times. Obviously I ended up staying for 4 years. But, I always did just feel like pretty fucking nervous before my shifts. I didn't like the anxiety of, at the end of the day, not having a guaranteed rate. That's just what it comes down to. It's like, yes, technically, when you go into a shift as a stripper, there's no cap. You technically could make all kinds of crazy money, but you could also make no money. Past that, you could go into debt. You could make negative money. That's the thing. A lot of people don't know that most strip clubs, you have to pay fees to work there. It's almost as though you're like a vendor renting out a table at like a fair. Like, you have to pay. Yeah, there'll be a house fee. There'll be a DJ tip out. There'll be a house mom tip out. There was, one of the clubs that I worked in Manhattan for a couple months. It ended up being almost $200. It was like $190 a night just to work there. So you're already going into the shift like, well, shit, I'm already $200 in debt. Like, now I need to really make some money just to, you know what I'm saying? Like, not only just to break even, like, to make a profit. It's like, well, God. So, yeah, the club that I was at, they didn't have a house fee, but they took half of your lap dance fee. And then again, with there being no private rooms, like, there just was, like, you really were relying on getting the clients to tip, just extra, and, the little bit of stage money. So it was just, yeah, not as lucrative, but at least you didn't go in already having, spent the money up front. For me, that was a little too much. I kind of just want to know, like, all right, even if I'm making a slightly lower rate one night, I want to know that going in, so it's like I can manage my energy accordingly. There could be a night where you did the most to, just look absolutely perfect. You did your makeup for an hour and a half. You did all this hair. It's your best outfit. And that night the club is fucking dead. Or it's not dead, but for whatever reason, like, I don't know, everyone's just feeling like homegirl over there. And, like, as much as I like to think of myself as a very, like, spontaneous and, I don't, like, I'm definitely not the 9 to 5 girly, but I like a little bit more structure. And yeah, so I found that, like, now, like, doing the gig work that I do as a dancer and performer, there will be times where, yeah, I'm still getting hired to pole dance. I'm still in these little outfits or whatnot. But yeah, I find that I'm able to work a lot more because I feel a little bit more at peace. I know how to manage my energy more, and I frankly just enjoy the jobs I do more. So I'm able to work more often, and that's how I'm able to really make the most money. So I do make more now than I was making when I was a stripper. But again, for much of my career, I was not working that many days a week. I was not at one of these bigger clubs with the private rooms and the things to maximize their earnings. But yeah, so these are just all things to think about. I'm probably gonna rewatch this and be like, oh, I missed that and I didn't explain this well and oh my god. But this is episode 1. This is my girl. I didn't know it's so hard to talk for like an hour and a half straight. Like this shit is exhausting, and I'm losing my light. Okay, so episode 1, Gab with Gabby.